Hello everyone, I'm making this video to give some information about guitar amps and making the most of the money you have to spend on equipment. There is a lot of misinformation and sales jargon out there which can be really confusing for new players especially. So I wanted to kind of clear some things up and give my own advice as someone who's played a lot of gigs with different types of amps. So there's three major types of guitar amp out there. You've got valve or tube amps, which are really generally heavy and expensive. They sound good. They're quite like a professional guitar player thing, and you can normally tell these because they have a standby switch next to the power switch on the front or back of the amp, so you've got two switches next to each other. They also have these glass valve things in the back which look like light bulbs, and that's what produces the sound basically. So the second type of amp is transistor or solid state amps. These work on a similar principle to valve amps in terms of making the sound, but they use transistors instead of valves. Now these amps are generally reliable, solid, as long as they're looked after. They're pretty light as well compared to valve amps, and they're normally quite simple. So the third type of amp is digital or modelling amps. These are the newest type, and they use computer technology to emulate different sounds and stuff like that. You can normally tell these because they have a digital display or panel, they've got USB, stuff like that, built-in effects. Some of these can be solid state as well, but generally the more complicated they are, the more likely they are to be digital amps. You can add a few pedals or a multi-effects unit if you're looking for more tones as well, and again these all sound different through different types of amp. So through a valve or a tube amp, they'll tend to sound warmer, more organic. Through a solid state amp it sounds more clear. Through a digital amp sometimes it will sound unnatural and compressed, but again this is generalizations and individual cases may vary, but generally that is what they'll sound like through those types of amp. So which of these three is most suitable for a beginner or an intermediate player on a budget? I've played gigs with all three of these types of amp. They can all sound good, they can all be reliable, but I think the one that I'd recommend is a solid state amp because you can generally find them pretty cheap secondhand on eBay, Facebook Marketplace, whatever. They're not heavy or overpriced like valve amps are often. Computer digital amps can be too complicated for a beginner, I'd say. You've got too many options, you just want to plug it in and play it. So I'd say look for a decent solid state amplifier secondhand around where you live. Bring one of your friends with you to try it out if you don't feel comfortable doing it yourself. And as long as it's affordable, sounds good, and it's solid, then go for it, If it's any of these types of amp, you can't really go wrong as long as it's decent, but just, for a budget, for a decent thing, for a solid thing to play, go for solid state, I'd say. There are some who insist their chosen amp type sounds the best and the others sound bad, but I'd suggest do your own research, go to a guitar shop, try out some different types of amp, watch some YouTube gear demos or whatever, because they can all sound good, they can all sound bad. It's just up to you to decide what kind of tone you want really. Listen with your ears, not with your eyes, and if it sounds good, it is good. Thanks for watching.